What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel, dude. We're going to do another comparison, not even a double ISOI. I've already done double ISOIs on both these phones, but we're going to do another comparison. This is between the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8, looking at them both in 2019, seeing whether you should spend a little bit more money and get the iPhone 8, or whether you should save some money and get the iPhone 7. Now, what I'll tell you is, both of these phones, in my opinion, are still pretty decent deals. They both kind of have their flops, they both kind of have their pros, but I think overall, I mean, if you want to, I would probably just say get the iPhone 7. It's so much cheaper. That's kind of the spoiler, but kind of going into detail will kind of help you out a little bit more than just me saying that. But looking on the outside, obviously you can tell that they look almost exactly the same. In terms of the front, they both have the same type of screen, the same resolution screen, almost the same cameras, the same type of home button. Really the main difference is on the back. The iPhone 8 does have the glass back with wireless charging, where the iPhone 7 does not. And looking forward, I mean, back in like 2017 when the iPhone 8 came out, it was kind of a big deal, but you know, a lot of phones were kind of bringing wireless charging and then taking them out and bringing them back, whatever. But I think now, especially in 2019 and looking forward, wireless charging is the bare minimum. If your phone does not have wireless charging, even if you don't use it, that's just kind of like a downside of getting that phone. It's not a pro. Like, I feel like wireless charging right now is like the regular base that a phone should have now. So it's not even like a crazy feature. I feel like every phone should have it. So it's kind of a negative thing the iPhone 7 doesn't have. But again, what are you going to do? You know, like yell at Apple to bring wireless charging on the iPhone 7? Like, they're not going to do it. They both do not have headphone jacks either, and that's pretty much on the exterior the main similarities and differences they have. Like I said, they're both going to look exactly the same. I think in terms of the way they feel, the iPhone 8 definitely feels way more premium in the hand, but what I will tell you is, if you get the jet black version of the iPhone 7, that phone feels very, very premium. I would say it feels almost as premium as the iPhone 8. I know that's kind of hard to believe, but in my opinion, I own the iPhone 7 Plus that was jet black. That phone was probably the greatest feeling phone I've ever owned, even compared to my iPhone 10, the 10R, the 10S, all these iPhones that I had. The iPhone 7 Plus jet black was definitely up there, one of my favorite design phones. So that's kind of on the exterior, talking about the hardware. Now I kind of want to delve deep into the software of these phones. If you don't follow my channel, I talk a lot about iOS, the software that's on these iPhones. And what I'll tell you is, man, of course, the iPhone 8 will probably end up lasting you longer than the iPhone 7. But here's a little conspiracy theory that I have. And I don't know how to verify this. You cannot verify this until like many years down the line. But I think that possibly, okay, the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 are going to have the same software life cycle, okay? So what I mean by that is the iPhone 7 will get an extra year of support, where the iPhone 8 will probably not. They'll end at the same time. Pretty much the same thing with the iPhone 6 and the iPhone 5S. Even though the iPhone 6 came out a year later, the iPhone 5S and the iPhone 6 are stopping at the same spot. And I've kind of alluding that to the same thing with the iPhone 7 and iPhone 8, because the 7 and the 8 are pretty much similar in terms of the way they perform, and not even the way they look, just the overall performance of both these phones. The iPhone 8 isn't like 30 times faster than the iPhone 7. Maybe it's like 10% faster, 20% faster, maybe even like if that. So that's why I think the iPhone 7 and the iPhone 8 are probably going to stop at the same time, and mostly because Apple just kind of wants to get rid of their home button design as fast as possible. And if they're going to support the iPhone 8, they might as well bring those same features to the iPhone 7 and those at the same time, rather than just developing home button software for one phone, develop it for both phones, since it's going to probably take the same amount of time, and just drop it and make the iPhone 7 users a little bit more happier and kind of go from there. And then they'll go update to the gesture-based design. And yeah, that's pretty much where I want to say that. Right now, the iPhone 7 is probably going to stop at iOS 14. The iPhone 8 is going to stop at iOS 15. But honestly, like I said, I think they're both going to stop at iOS 15. And I'm going to come back to this video like 2 or 3 years down the line, and I'm going to see whether I'm right or wrong from this point. So hopefully I'm right. If I'm wrong, I'm never going to talk about this ever again. But just know I predicted it here first, alright? And now that's kind of on the software side of things. Let's go ahead and move to the performance side, okay? So the iPhone 7 has the Apple A10 Fusion chip. The iPhone 8 has the Apple A11 Bionic chip. The 7 has a quad-core CPU and 2 gigs of RAM, where the iPhone 8 has a hexa-core CPU and 2 gigs of RAM as well. And what I'll tell you is, man, the performance on both of these phones is pretty much the same, okay? If I wasn't using them side by side, I probably wouldn't notice a difference, but I did do a speed comparison, and I did find the iPhone 8 was just a little bit faster. But honestly, I think there's something wrong with my iPhone 7. I think it actually has like a software problem that makes it run slower than usual, because I've had other iPhone 7s and those have ran fine, and this one for some reason is just really weird. But what I'll tell you is, the performance of the iPhone 7 is still very, very good. The performance of the iPhone 8 is still very, very good as well. It's not the best performing phone ever. I don't even think when these phones were released they were the fastest, because they both had Plus counterparts that were technically faster on paper and had better specifications than what the regular variants had. So what I'll tell you is, between the 7 and the 8, they both almost feel the same. And like I said, if I wasn't comparing them side by side, regular performance, opening apps, closing apps, multitasking, all that stuff is pretty much the same. If you're talking about gaming, I will probably give that edge to the iPhone 8 as well. But again, the iPhone 7 really isn't even that bad. If the iPhone 8's performance was like a 10 out of 10, which it isn't. I'm not saying it is perfect, but let's just say for this example, if these were the only two phones that ever existed, the iPhone 8 was a 10 out of 10, the iPhone 7 would probably be like 8.5 out of 10, like a 9 out of 10, like not even that much of a difference. Maybe there's a few things that kind of rub me the wrong way, but overall, I would not recommend just going to get an iPhone 8 just based on the performance itself. There may be a couple other reasons why to pick up an iPhone 8, but the biggest difference is not really the performance, which is surprising because that's usually the main difference between phones. You look at the 6 and 6S, that really had a huge difference in speed, but the 7 and the 8, not so much. Now let's go ahead and talk about the cameras, which in my opinion is probably the most boring thing to talk about, especially for phones nowadays because they're so good, and that seems like the only thing manufacturers really want to improve on. They both have very, very good cameras in my opinion. The iPhone 7, they both have 12 megapixel sensors, and they both have 7 megapixel sensors on the front, and surprisingly, there's not too much difference between them. If I'm looking at the raw photos, they look pretty much identical. Yeah, you might be able to see a couple differences where the iPhone 8 is better and all this stuff, but in my opinion, I think they both run perfectly fine. I think they're both perfectly good cameras. One thing that might actually surprise you is that the iPhone 8 can shoot 4K at 60 frames per second and 1080p at up to 240 frames per second, where the iPhone 7 can shoot 4K at 30 frames and 1080p at only 120 frames. So a little bit of difference right there. I don't think a lot of you people who are watching this are going to care at all. I think a lot of you are just going to be like, you know what, I just like the iPhone 7 because it's cheaper. I like the iPhone 8 because it takes better photos and wireless charging. I don't think you're going to look at these cameras and be like, man, the iPhone 8 has that much of a better camera. And surprisingly, if you guys remember, I did the iPhone 8 versus iPhone XR, or iPhone 7 versus iPhone XR in terms of camera, and I noticed that yeah, the iPhone XR probably had a better camera, but both the 7 and the 8 I found had very good sensors still, and even though they don't have all the features or anything, they both kind of suffer in that. So they both don't have portrait mode, they both don't have like a secondary lens for telephoto zooming or anything like that, but I think overall the sensors are very decent, and even if the iPhone 8 was like a 10 out of 10 perfect, again, the iPhone 7 probably like a 9 out of 10, not that big of a difference. Now here's a surprising thing. As Apple made an increase, they made the iPhone 8, they're supposed to be better overall and everything like that. For some reason, they decreased the battery size, which is the dumbest thing ever. I don't know why Apple and all these other phone manufacturers do that when they go from one generation to another. Why don't they just go make the batteries bigger? Like they make everything else bigger. They make everything else better except the battery. It makes absolutely no sense. The iPhone 7 had a 1,960 milliamp hour battery. The iPhone 8 had a 1,821 milliamp hour battery. And really, I would probably say they're almost in the same league. Like I don't find one being way better than the other. My specific iPhone 7 does have battery problems, and I feel like a lot of people suffer from that. So that's one important thing to know. Do your research. Make sure the iPhone 7 you're getting is in good condition. But with the iPhone 8, I really haven't had any like battery problems at all. So that's a really good thing. I'm surprised about that. My back is cracked on the iPhone 8, but other than that, everything works fine. So I was expecting it to be worse. I was expecting it whatever, but really, I'm more so mad about the size decrease. I feel like, if they kept it the same 1,960 or even bumped it up to 2,000, that would have made a lot of people happy, and I would have been definitely happy about that. Having better battery life, that would have been really cool. I don't want the same battery life as the previous phone. I want better battery life. So in terms of the overall battery health and our battery life or whatever, you're going to be pretty much the same on both of these. The iPhone 7 is cheaper, the iPhone 8 is more expensive, so kind of play that out by ear, but they both do have battery cases that Apple sells, so that's definitely a plus. So I'd probably recommend that. But really, that kind of covers up everything I needed to talk about. Again, some other bullet points, some other notable things to note. No dual cameras on the back for both of these phones. They're both pretty much built the same. The iPhone 8 does have wireless charging. Home button on the front is pretty much the same. Vibration motor. Both of these phones are a pain to fix yourself. You're going to pretty much have to go to the Apple Store every time you want to fix a phone, whether it's a 7 or the 8. So kind of keep that in mind. No headphone jacks on both of these, and both the cameras on these things are pretty much the same. Battery life, obviously you just heard me, is pretty much the same on both of these too. So would I recommend you getting an iPhone 7 or an iPhone 8 in 2019? This is what I would tell you, okay? If you have a budget, if your budget is like $200 or less than that, you will probably not be able to find an iPhone 8 on eBay or whatever for less than $200 without you sounding like you're just trying to haggle that person down a lot. Whereas on the iPhone 7, you'll probably be able to pull an iPhone 7 32 gig version for like $170, $160 maybe if you're lucky. But again, you have to remember that the iPhone 7 base model is 32 gigs, with the iPhone 8's base model is 64. But again, you might be able to pull a 64 gig variant iPhone 7 for less than $200 if you're lucky, and those are unlocked versions too. The iPhone 8 is a little bit more expensive. It's noticeably more expensive. I've seen some go for like around $300 for the base model, which is a lot of money to spend on a used phone. I understand Apple's still selling the iPhone 8 in the store, and it's only one generation behind, but the iPhone 7 they're still selling in the store too. So what I would tell you is I don't think the iPhone 8 is worth the extra money, especially for someone like me who I think the iPhone 7 is going to get an extra year of support. So again, I would just kind of see your usage and see, whether you need the extra little bit of performance, whether you need wireless charging, whether you need a little bit better camera or anything like that. But really, I think these phones are way more similar than they are different. I would not spend more than like $100 extra to get an iPhone 8. I'd probably end up just getting an iPhone 7 and keeping it there. If you want any more details on one of these specific phones, I've done double ISOs on both of these, so check back on my channel. You'll be able to see more detailed videos on both of them. If you want, both of these phones would probably be the cheapest to buy on eBay, but I'll go ahead and link the cheapest ones that I find on Amazon and link them straight below. So the cheapest iPhone 7s and iPhone 8s that I find on Amazon, I'll link them straight in the description. First link's down there, so I would highly recommend you to get them through those links, not only because it's easier for you, but you can actually help out the channel at the same time, help us do more videos like this and do more giveaways and everything like that. So that pretty much sums up the video, man. If you have any questions or anything like that, whether you agree or disagree, let me know in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that'll mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I would really appreciate if you guys could check it out, but more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.